Part 46. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 451. Tianya also introduced Yezi to Zhang Zizai, who is now the genius lone seedling of the immortal talisman. Although he looks fresh, like a boy of 14 or 15 years old, in fact he is already 21 years old, older than Zhang Zizai. 21 years old, the first level of the Divine Seal realm. This level is already the level of the Son of God in Shenzong. Zhang Zizai remembered that the master of the Beast God Palace had a divine son who was 21 years old and at the first level of the Divine Seal realm. However, at this level, there is only one immortal talisman. Tianya didn't just throw Zhang Zizai down casually at that time. He just happened to see Yezi and considered that Zhang Zizai might not have time to sharpen his ink, so he threw him next to Yezi. This is a reserved and shy young man. He does not have the high-spirited feeling of other young men at all. He is very polite and does not seem to have much fighting spirit. However, in a place like the Life and Death Talisman sect, those who are already talented but choose to learn the immortal series of talismans actually have little desire to fight. This is a very clean person. "Hello, Zhang Zizai, are you coming with me?" he asked a little nervously. Okay, Zhang Zizai crushed a flying talisman and asked him to sit on it. "Hello, Uncle Ye." Lingdang was smart and said hello quickly. So cute, Yezi's heart melted. "Gift." Lingdang stretched out her little hand. Snap! Zhang Zizai slapped her palm back, asking for a gift as soon as they met. How unbecoming it was. Yezi saw the aggrieved look on the bell's face and couldn't bear it. He quickly rummaged through the space jade pendant and took out a bell. It was a totem magic weapon. It was not a high level, but its sound was very clear. "It's fun, thank you, Uncle Ye." Lingdang was very happy. "You are so awesome, you can even fly the flying talisman." Seeing that the little girl was no longer aggrieved, Yezi breathed a sigh of relief and praised. Zhang Zizai looked him up and down, and to be honest, this young man looked a bit beautiful, like a girl, and even acted like him. Of course, there is no doubt that he is male. "You are quite good too. King Tianya Talisman told me that you are the #1 genius of the immortal talisman," Zhang Zizai said with a smile. "It's all a meaningless name. I won't argue with others. This name is of no use," Yezi said with a smile, showing his big white teeth. "Very sunny. I'm a little curious, why don't you learn the Wuxian series of talismans?" Zhang Zizai asked. Many people must have asked this question. He rubbed his head and said, "My ancestors were all doctors. My father sent me here because he thought I could learn more about saving people, so that I can benefit the people when I go back." "Have ambition." Zhang Zizai gave a thumbs up. "There are too many people fighting and killing, and I am the only one missing." Yezi smiled a little cautiously. "However, some people will always think that it would be a waste if you don't use the inanimate talisman with such a high talent. It doesn't matter." They were able to control the flying talisman, which was considered very high-end. Most Fusion either rides a boat, controls a source beast, or has learned some techniques to run on water. Today there are 10,000 people, and 2,000 people are elected. Yes. For Zhang Zizai, this was almost no difficulty, it was just a formality. It may not be until the second stage that there will be real competition. When the flying talisman was advancing, a flying talisman also flew by the side. There were 7 or 8 young people standing on it, both men and women. "It's Zhang Zizai." When Zhang Zizai heard someone say his name, he turned around and saw that the person holding the flying talisman next to him was already approaching. They were all young men and women, and they looked more mature than Zhang Zizai. They were probably around Zhang Junjian's age. Sister Xuanhuan. Yezi saw one of the women. Although the woman was wearing a black robe, her temperament was like a hibiscus. Even the black robe could not hide her appearance. The flying symbols of both sides were flying side by side. The person on the other side looked at Zhang Zizai and then at Ye Zi. Next to the beauty named Xuanhuan, stood a handsome young man. He was well groomed and looked very bright when he smiled. He looked like a descendant of a noble family. He said to Zhang Zizai, "Hello, my name is Ningfan." Without reaching out to hit the smiling man, Zhang Zizai nodded and smiled, saying, "Is something wrong?" "It's okay, I just heard about your deeds and came here to get acquainted. By the way, the immortal talisman should wear white robes on formal occasions." Ningfan pointed to the black robe on Zhang Zizai and said. "What I added yesterday was the inanimate talisman," Zhang Zizai said. Several of them were very surprised. What the Tianya talisman king brought back was actually the inanimate talisman. The woman named Xuanhuan pondered for a moment and said, "It seems that you want to compete with us for the Wuxian talisman." Everyone was stunned. No wonder. "That's right, you have to be careful since I'm joining you," Zhang Zizai said. They looked at each other and smiled. "Did you know that the upper limit of the Wanfu Club this time is 25? Not 18?" Ningfan smiled. "I know, but it doesn't make any difference," Zhang Zizai said. Arrogant. Judging from his dismissive attitude, he clearly didn't take everyone seriously when he said such things. It seems that in the eyes of the ancient Son of God, our Wuxian Fu sect has really declined to the point that he looks down upon us, Ningfan said to the people around him. Everyone laughed. "There is nothing we can do. Our elders asked us to keep a low profile for the sake of revival." Xuanhuan shook his head. "That's why people underestimate you. But, Zhang Zizai, you will soon find out how embarrassing it is to be arrogant and complacent," Ningfan said. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. "I'm not the son of the ancient gods," Zhang Zizai said lightly. Seeing that he was a little cold, Ningfan said, "I was joking, don't take it too seriously." "It's a small matter," Zhang Zizai said. Zhang Zizai noticed that Ye Zi was lowering his head beside him, feeling a little uneasy. Ningfan said, "Since Zhang Xiao brother has joined the Wuxian Fu system, it's better not to mix with the trash of the immortal Fu system. They are all freeloaders in the Fu Si. Apart from wasting resources, they don't know what they can do." "Nonsense, the classics of the immortal Fu system are vast and boundless, with a deep foundation and great use," Ye Zi couldn't help but said, his face flushed. "Hey, do you want to gamble again, my great genius?" Ningfan teased. The boys and girls behind him all laughed. "Is urine delicious?" Ningfan asked. Ye Zi lowered his head, his neck full of blue veins, as if he remembered the nightmare of his life. "If you are not willing, come to me anytime to bet again, if you still want to taste the taste of urine." Ningfan finished speaking, and laughed with his friends. The woman named Xuanhuan said with a cold face, "Ye Zi, give up these useless things and join the Wuxian Fu system, you still have a chance." "No, Sister Xuanhuan." Ye Zi suddenly loosened his fist, exhaled, and said calmly. "Then be prepared to be a waste for life," Xuanhuan said coldly. "Let's go, just treat it as a joke." Ningfan waved his hand. It is impossible to know whether this joke is about Zhang Zizai, who does not know the height of the world, or Ningfan. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 452. In the second round, tens of thousands of disciples sat cross-legged on the Wanfu Island, with a table in front of them. In front of them was the huge talisman column. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow Smoke G. The strong men of the Life and Death Talisman sect were all watching them from the high ground. A talisman general named Jing Qing took out a talisman and prepared to stick it on the talisman column. "Get ready." Tens of thousands of talisman masters have already ground the talisman ink and are ready to start. "Hey, are you feeling uncomfortable?" Zhang Zizai touched Ye Zi next to him. He was still distracted and hadn't even ground the talisman ink. Next, it was a race against time. "It's okay, thank you." He shook his head, trying to get rid of some unhappy things. Look forward. Zhang Zizai patted his shoulder. At this time, many people's eyes were focused on him. Everyone knew that he joined the Wuxian Talisman sect for the Wuxian Talisman. After all, he is regarded as the son of the ancient gods. Even if he is too young, he will always arouse people's curiosity and want to see if he is qualified. Zhang Zizai's eyes were on the talisman in the hand of the talisman general Jing Cheng. It was a moon-level talisman. The moon-level talisman is pasted on the talisman column. The talisman column will show the drawing process. The talisman students can complete the promotion by copying and drawing a complete talisman. The fastest 2,000 people will enter the next round. As long as they can enter the next round, speed is meaningless. Generally speaking, the talismans used for competitions are very unconventional, such as this demon miasma talisman, which has almost been lost in the talisman sect. But Zhang Zizai laughed. He had a bunch of demon miasma talismans in his space jade pendant. This is to ask everyone to learn the demon miasma talisman on the spot. Of course, there must be someone who has learned it first, or even can draw it, which is a huge advantage. However, there are several rounds in the first stage of the 10,000 Talismans Association. No one is always lucky enough to encounter a talisman that they all know. When Jing Qing pasted the magic miasma talisman, the totem pattern of the magic miasma talisman shone on the talisman column, and it moved down one by one. The intense drawing began. In less than 3 breaths. First place, Ye Chen. Zhang Zizai was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect someone to be so fast. It seems that he has learned it like himself. Since he can't get the first place, it doesn't matter to him. He will watch with others first. After all, he is a newcomer, so he shouldn't rush to show his talent. So, half an hour passed. 20th place, Ye Zi, he stabilized his emotions, and he has made progress, from 31st last time to 20th. Amazing. Zhang Zizai was still pretending to observe, but he succeeded. I have studied the magic miasma talisman before. It's a fluke. Ye Zi smiled a little embarrassedly. Ning Fan, the 21st place, hearing the voice, Ye Zi suddenly felt a strong gaze. After all, he was wearing a white robe and was too conspicuous in the crowd. It was Ning Fan's. Xuanhuan, the 25th place. In a blink of an eye, a day passed, and thousands of people had succeeded. In fact, if so many people were not looking at him, Zhang Zizai would have finished drawing long ago. But he just wanted to see how long they would stare at him. The talisman kings and talisman generals all saw what potential he had. So Zhang Zizai seemed bored, he just didn't draw, and if he did, he would just draw casually. Until they finally sighed and stopped looking, and he achieved his goal, he drew the magic miasma talisman. Why do you do this? Of course, keep a low profile, be silent, and get to the second stage smoothly first. After all, my current identity is not very stable. More than 1,000, he. Many people who paid attention to Zhang Zizai gradually forgot about him. It took 2 full days to select 2,000 people. It is said that the time consumed next will be longer and longer. Zhang Zizai deliberately slowed down. Yes, a sun-level totem master should not be so weak, even though he is young. But I have seen his pen-holding posture, which is very non-standard, and he has many bad habits. These will affect him. I estimate that it will be difficult for him to enter the 32nd and the second stage. We have more than 100 sun-level totem masters, all of whom are very fast and have high comprehension. Normal, after all, to reach the sun-level totem master, basically you are over 23 years old. He is several years behind, so it is normal that he can't enter the 100th. I heard that he covets the Wuxian talisman. Haha. Everyone couldn't help laughing. The second round is over. 5 days later, the third round officially began. This time it was the top-level moon-level talisman soul-chasing talisman. This time the final selection will select the top 100. 3 breaths of time. Ye Chen, first place, it was him again. People started to make a noise, full of praise. Damn, so fast, cursing him on the bed can only take 3 breaths. Zhang Zizai cursed obscenely in his heart, his hands were still slow. Ye Zi, 18th place. Damn, you are so fast too, Zhang Zizai glared at him, this guy is getting faster and faster, what's going on? Don't you practice the Immortal series mostly? How come you learn the Lifeless series talismans so quickly? Zhang Zizai clearly felt that this 10,000 talismans club was unfair, all of them were Lifeless series talismans. The principle is the same, I don't learn it, but it doesn't mean I can't learn it. Ye Zi smiled sunny. Great. Zhang Zizai gave him a thumbs up. If so, he would have no problem entering the second stage. It's a pity that in the second stage, we need to fight, and I can only rank last, he said regretfully. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. It's okay, I'll protect you then, Zhang Zizai said with a smile. Why don't you hurry up and do it? You can't even enter the top 500. Everyone knows that you are hiding your strength. They all say that you may enter the top 100, Ye Zi said. 100? Haha. Zhang Zizai smiled and slowly finished the soul-chasing talisman. Rank 380. Actually, I think you should be in the top 10, Ye Zi said. Do you think so highly of me? For the first time, I saw it clearly, Ye Zi smiled. Unfortunately, I will disappoint you, Zhang Zizai said. Successfully entered the top 500, and this time I will rest for 7 days. Next time, I will directly enter the top 100 from the top 500. That will be even more cruel. If you are a little careless, you will fall out and lose the opportunity completely. The talisman students basically went back to retreat. Zhang Zizai thought he would definitely make it into the top 30, so there was nothing to worry about. He still focused on cultivation. In Qingyu Lake, Lingdang turned into a little white dragon, catching the small fish and shrimps and making them miserable. He was by the lake, looking up at the sky. Lingdang, come here. Zhang Zizai held the little girl and looked up at the stars in the sky. Daddy, I miss my mother. Lingdang suddenly shed tears. Do you know she exists? In my mother's belly, Lingdang often played games with her. Lingdang wiped her tears. Zhang Zizai picked up the white little bell on her chest, and the skull pattern of reincarnation appeared. Daddy, when can I see my mother? Lingdang asked expectantly. When Lingdang grows up, it will be fine. Then I have to grow up quickly. My aunt said that eating milk will make you grow faster. I want to eat milk. In this place where no one lives. Only the giant whales in the evolutionary world can feed her. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 453. This time the rest time is 7 days. Zhang Zizai looked at the information of the participants and found that he really underestimated the young strong men of the Life and Death Talisman sect. There are quite a few who are stronger than him at the 10,000 Talisman Conference. Tianya also came to analyze and said, according to your current strength, it is impossible to enter the top 4 when you really reach the second stage. If you can't enter the top 4, then you will definitely have no chance to get the Lifeless Talisman. It feels that the difficulty of getting the Lifeless Talisman is even higher than becoming the son of the ancient gods. The son of the ancient gods is at least the same age, and almost all the competitors this time are over 23 years old. The unfairness of age is not there for any genius. So as long as he has a little time, he will do his best to improve himself, and work hard on talismans, realms, and battle tactics. If I miss this opportunity and fail to get the immortal talisman, I'm afraid I will regret it for the rest of my life. Daddy, come and play. Lingling is innocent and lively. Apart from missing her mother, she has no worries at all. Play with you, you pighead. Zhang Zizai let her crawl around on Qingyu Island by herself, and occasionally turned into a little white dragon, rushed into the talisman sea, and played with those talismans. He was fully focused on condensing the 5th level of the Divine Seal, the Bull God Seal. 6 days later, the next round of competition will begin tomorrow. He took Lingling to walk around the talisman sea to relax. Go find Yezi. He was asked to come to Qingyu Island to play before, but he didn't come for a day. Yezi is on Kairguang Island, and he doesn't have the same treatment as Zhang Zizai. There are 7 or 8 immortal talisman system talismans on the island. Where is Yezi? Zhang Zizai landed. He's not here. I just met him on the road. He seems to be a little bit wrong and looks very angry, one of the teenagers said. They were young and old, the oldest was nearly 25, and the youngest was only 13 or 14 years old. Angry, Zhang Zizai asked. I asked him what was wrong. He said nothing, but I felt like something was wrong, the boy said. Where did he go? The boy thought for a moment and said, maybe in the direction of Fanshan Island. That's where Ningfan is. That Ningfan always bullies him. They were a bit weak to say it. Yezi was already the #1 genius in the immortal talisman system, and Ningfan was not even ranked in the lifeless talisman system, but he always bullied him. Thank you. Zhang Zizai had just arrived and had no friends. He originally wanted to chat with Yezi and get familiar with the life and death talisman sect, but he was not there. Forget it, let's go and take a look. He had originally decided to go back to Qingyu Island, but he remembered their conversation when he met Ningfan last time. If he went to Fanshan Island in anger, he would definitely suffer. Lead me the way. Zhang Zizai used a flying talisman to pull the talking boy up. Flying talisman, the young man was a little in awe of Zhang Zizai. After all, he was famous, but he was still very honest and took Zhang Zizai to the vicinity of Fanshan Island. Before they arrived, Zhang Zizai heard a sound over there. Daddy, they bullied Uncle Ya, Lingling said angrily. Her eyes were pretty good. Zhang Zizai asked the young man to go back first, and he landed directly on Fanshan Island. This Fanshan Island was very large, and many palaces were built on it. In front of a palace, 4 or 5 young men were gathered together. Among them, it seemed that a young man in white was pressed to the ground. Hello. Accept the loss. The leading young man was Ningfan. He was 24 years old this year, not young, and 1 year older than Zhang Junjian. He pinched Yezi's neck with one hand, and the other young men held Yezi's hands and feet respectively, pressing him to the ground, unable to move. A young man lifted Yezi's head and pinched his mouth open. Ningfan held a large bowl in his hand, and the bowl was full of turbid liquid. I only let you drink a drop last time, which was a bargain for you. This time it's enough for 5 people. You have to finish it to show your manliness. Yezi Ningfan smiled and picked up the bowl to pour it down. Suddenly, Zhang Zizai landed beside him, holding an indignant little girl in his arms. Yezi's face was livid, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was struggling hard. His red eyes stared at Ningfan, and he growled, I will never coexist with you in this life. Okay, stop bragging. Ningfan reached out and patted his face, saying, you lost the bet yourself, you can't blame others. He raised his head and looked at Zhang Zizai, and said with a smile, this guy came to trouble me for no reason. I asked him if he dared to bet again. He agreed, but unfortunately he still lost. If you lose, you have to obey. If you agree to drink, you have to drink. Zhang Zizai, don't you think so? This is the spirit of the contract. You are insidious and cunning. Sister Xuanhuan will not forgive you, Yezi struggled and said angrily. He had never seen such a good person like him so angry at this time. Ningfan was too lazy to pay attention to him. He smiled and asked Zhang Zizai, "Don't you have any objections?" Zhang Zizai didn't know what happened, but it didn't matter. But he was a nosy person. When he was in the king city of Dajiang, wherever there was injustice, there was his presence. Bullying others by taking advantage of power is nothing. He smiled and said, "If you have any objections, you are in large numbers. No one saw the bet just now, so we don't know whether it was fair or not. I'll bet with you again. If I lose, I'll drink this bowl of Jinjianjiaoyu." The five of them were stunned for a moment, then looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. Ningfan, it seems interesting that the ancient son of God was able to drink the jade and jade liquid of the five of us. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. How about you fight him? The name of the ancient son of God is too big after all. He is from the divine sect, so it is inevitable that many people want to compare him. Who would like an outsider to suddenly break in and say he wants to compete for the Wuxian Fu? Who would like an outsider to suddenly break in and steal the limelight of the Wuxian Fu system? In their eyes, Zhang Zizai is still the ancient son of God, not a native of their Fu sect. Ningfan pondered for a while and asked Zhang Zizai, "What if I lose?" "Then naturally show your pride and drink it in one gulp." Zhang Zizai smiled. Ningfan glanced at the bowl in his hand, handed it to the young man next to him, and reminded, "Hold it steady, don't spill it." "Daddy, what's in the bowl?" Lingling asked curiously. "It's a special kind of wine." Zhang Zizai didn't want to use the darkness and shamelessness of this world to taint the child's mind. At this time, Ningfan let Yezi go, and Yezi broke free. This signal was very obvious, indicating that Ningfan had agreed. The same bowl of food, let Yezi drink it, or let Zhang Zizai drink it, the sense of accomplishment is different. Compared with Yezi, it is obviously more fun to let Zhang Zizai be humiliated. Zhang Zizai. Yezi got nervous and wanted to advise. "Don't say it, just watch." Zhang Zizai patted his shoulder and put back what he was about to say. He is the son of Talisman General Ning Suiyu, and there are people in the Divine Seal realm around him. Even if he loses, he won't drink. He is famous for going back on his word, Yezi said. "Really?" Zhang Zizai let him hold the bell and walked forward. "So, what is the mode of the gambling fight?" "No mode, just fight directly," Zhang Zizai said. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 454. Disciples of the Life and Death Talisman sect often compare the speed of drawing talismans. Just now, Ningfan and Yezi were also comparing the speed of drawing talismans. He was too disciplined and was tricked by Ningfan again. Ningfan thought that Zhang Zizai was also going to compare the speed of drawing talismans. He never expected that Zhang Zizai would choose the mode that made him most relaxed. The winner was decided by fighting directly. "Do you know that I am at the 6th level of the Divine Seal realm?" Ningfan laughed dumbly. He was so surprised that he couldn't believe his ears. An 18-year-old child wants to compete with Ningfan in fighting. Did I hear it right? The five of them burst into laughter, laughing so hard that they fell forward and backward. Ningfan waved his hands helplessly and said, "Don't laugh, maybe he is very strong and is just pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger." Everyone looked at each other and laughed again. Do these so-called top geniuses like this routine? Isn't there anyone to teach them and tell them that this is an outdated thing? They laughed so hard that they almost died. Finally, I'll give you a friendly reminder. I'm at the 6th level of the Divine Seal realm. I'm 6 years older than you. When I started practicing, you were probably just an egg, Ningfan said with a teasing smile. At this age, you're only at the 6th level of the Divine Seal realm. Do you still have the nerve to say that? Zhang Zizai laughed. They were startled, and then laughed again. I thought the ancient son of the divine sect would be immune to this. Look at the tone of his speech. Is there any difference between him and the protagonist of the wild biography I read yesterday? Great, great. Ning Fan, you have to be careful. He might suddenly burst out and get you in one move. Those rubbish who wrote wild biography all daydream like this. Ning Fan smiled and said to Zhang Zizai, okay, kid, don't waste time, go ahead. You're too noisy. While Zhang Zizai was talking, Ning Fan's friends behind him had already made way for them on the battlefield. Ning Fan entered the combat state, and the whole person instantly became gloomy, completely different from his usual temperament. A strong bloody aura surrounded him. When he was not joking, he already had the demeanor of a peerless strong man. The scene suddenly became cold and stern. Yezhi was nervous and quickly took Ling Ling to hide behind. Daddy, beat his ass. In such an occasion, only Ling Ling herself was not nervous. If you can't finish it, you can give some to your daughter. After all, she is growing up, Ning Fan said with a sly smile. Originally, for Zhang Zizai, this was just an ordinary battle, but when the other party said such words, it was not over. In his heart, the reverse scale before was Juxian, and now there is an additional reverse scale, which is his daughter, and even more precious. Humiliating words, it is too much to say to a child of these few months. Zhang Zizai responded with his totem divine power, the devouring domain. In the darkness, his eyes flashed with the light of a giant beast, black air swept, and several Avasai hell talismans in his hand were crushed, and the thick hell death aura swept instantly. Avasai hell talisman? You can do it? You can't use talismans that are not drawn by yourself in this gambling fight, Ning Fan said. After the end, I will give you a video of the production process. Ning Fan was very troubled by the double cover of the devouring field and the Avasai hell talisman. It seems that I underestimated him a little bit. But he grinned and moved. A pen appeared between his eyebrows. It was the blood ink sky pen totem. The awakening of the totem, behind him, it seemed that there was a huge pillar supporting his body. A pen appeared in his hand. It was not a spiritual wood pen for drawing talismans, but a totem magic weapon. The tip of the pen was very sharp and seemed to be able to penetrate everything. As the pen tip swept across, blood and energy surged. With the Hong level totem plus the blood essence pen and the 6th level of the divine seal realm, this young man in his 20s was stronger than Nangongke. He was also stronger than Bai Yeling of the Hades Palace. But Zhang Zizai's heaven devouring was omnipotent. In an instant, the two of them clashed in an instant. Ning Fan held the blood Yuan pen and used the heavenly evil pen technique to fight against Zhang Zizai's 9 palaces heavenly sword technique. Blood burning talisman. Talisman masters can fight while casting talismans. The burning blood talisman can cause blood to burn as long as it touches Zhang Zizai's body slightly. Dark will talisman. The talisman was cast, forming a serrated will in the air, which rotated and almost cut Zhang Zizai in half. You still have some skills, Ning Fan sighed. Really? The opponent was too proud. He didn't know that in the world controlled by Zhang Zizai, the stronger the attack he used, the greater the consumption would be, and all his attacks would eventually backfire on him. Dragon splitting 3 styles. Zhang Zizai's magic eye turned into a battle halberd. This time he completely suppressed his opponent. All the true energy that Ning Fan had previously dispersed was gathered in the true energy. Boom! The palace behind Ning Fan was chopped off in half by Zhang Zizai, and he himself was in a very awkward situation, dodging Zhang Zizai's attack. As for his 4 friends, they could only hide behind them at this time. They looked at each other with a slightly awkward expression. He has a little ability, right? Until this time, they still comforted themselves like this. But then, they saw Ning Fan's face was depressed, and he was defeated under Zhang Zizai's suppression. Finally, under Zhang Ziyi's punch, Ningfan completely smashed the palace and fell to the ground. His chest almost caved in, his body was covered in blood, and he was trembling under the encirclement of the god of death's true energy. Ningfan's eyes were full of despair. A move of the eternal god fist directly defeated him. Ugh, he was about to speak, but he spit out a mouthful of blood. Ningfan, his 4 friends rushed in and helped him up. Their hands were shaking as they supported Ningfan. How could he lose? It's impossible. What realm is he in? It must be that you are too careless, Ningfan. I said you can't be careless. They were still laughing just now, but now their faces were livid and their expressions were dull. Shut up, Ningfan was suppressed from the beginning. No matter how unwilling he was, he knew he was no match. He struggled to get up and said, Zhang Zizai, this is the life and death Fu sect. It's not your divine sect. I have no grudges against you. If you dare to hurt me like this, I will never let you go. Just wait and see. When he spoke, Yezhi was standing beside Zhang Zizai in a daze, opening his mouth and not knowing what to say. Ningfan, have you forgotten something? Zhang Zizai smiled. Get out of here quickly, or don't blame us for being rude. His 4 friends stood in front of Ningfan and said with a bad face. Don't be polite, take him down and pour it in for me. Ningfan gritted his teeth and said. You are not a gambler like this. Zhang Zizai squinted his eyes and said. As soon as he finished speaking, his 4 friends rushed up. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 455. 30 breaths later, Ningfan looked dull as he watched his 4 friends fall to the ground and howl miserably. Everyone's face was swollen from Zhang Zizai's slap, and every one of them looked like a pig's head. Black and swollen. They could only tremble and could not speak. Looking at Zhang Zizai's eyes full of fear, they wanted to speak and beg for mercy, but their mouths were too swollen and their words turned into babbling. Yezhi, help me hold Lingdang while we play, Zhang Zizai said. The next scene is not suitable for children to watch. Brother Zhang, why not forget it? Yezhi said with some struggle. Think about it, what he did to you just now can be counted, Zhang Zizai asked. No, Yezhi thought about it. Really, I can't forget it? The cycle of cause and effect brings its own retribution. Zhang Zizai, you are seeking death. This is the talisman of life and death sect. Ningfan struggled to crawl back. I know, I don't need you to remind me. Ningfan, we must have a spirit of contract. This is what you taught us. Zhang Zizai picked up the bowl and pressed his mouth. A long time. Ningfan fell softly to the ground. It is your own fault and you will not live. How you treat the weak will be treated by the stronger. This world is fair. Zhang Zizai kicked him twice, but Ningfan was still lying on the ground, vomiting out all the bile. Ningfan, as soon as he finished speaking, a woman rushed over and helped Ningfan up. Seeing Ningfan's miserable condition, the woman's eyes were blood red and she stared at Zhang Zizai and Yezhi. The ancient son of God, dominating and dominating, is really amazing, amazing. Xuanhuan clenched his fists. Her eyes shifted to Yezhi, equally angry. Such angry eyes made Yezhi a little panicked. Yezhi, you are so powerful, you can even find helpers. Sister Xuanhuan, I just want to help you teach him a lesson. He treats you so shamelessly. Shut up. What does it have to do with you? Xuanhuan scolded angrily. She helped Ningfan up, stared at Zhang Zizai and Yezhi fiercely, and said, this matter is not over yet, you just wait to die. Especially you, Yezhi. The young man in white stood stunned on the spot. Sister Xuanhuan, didn't you cry to me and say that he got you drunk and was frivolous about you? Yezhi said blankly. Xuanhuan took a deep breath and said, I was just flustered and said a few words to you, but it's none of your business. None of your business? Yezi took a few steps back, his heart hurting so much that he didn't know what to say. When I looked for her in the morning, I saw her crying at the door and asked her what happened. Although she said few words, she guessed it. Seeing her crying, he couldn't bear it anymore and came to Mortal Island in a rage to seek justice for her. Unexpectedly, what I got in exchange were these 4 words. Let's go. Zhang Zizai patted him on the shoulder and said, on the road of life, there are always some people who are not worth paying for. You are being sentimental. I understand. Yezi trembled all over, but he still followed Zhang Zizai, turned back resolutely, and left this mortal island. In this mortal world, we are all common people. Zhang Zizai, from now on, the Fu sect will live and die without you or me, Ning Fan's tragic voice still echoed behind. In fact, this matter has nothing to do with Zhang Zizai. However, he found Yezi quite pleasing to his eye. This young man was very clean. So, don't let this mortal world tarnish his innocent heart. Zhang Zizai likes to do evil things. We will continue the Wanfu meeting tomorrow. Let's go to Qingyu Island tonight, have some wine and chat. Zhang Zizai held the bell in one hand and hung it on his shoulder with the other, and returned to Qingyu Island with a swagger. Yezi just experienced a farce in his life. I've changed my mind, he said. What exactly? Today, I'm a little envious of your ability. Do you want to join the Wuxian Talisman sect? No, but I will fight hard. Who said that the Immortal Talisman is not good at fighting? That's right. Seeing the bells jumping up and down in the sea of symbols, Zhang Zizai couldn't help but sigh. It's great to be young. Whoosh. A piece of talisman was inserted at his feet. Zhang Zizai picked it up and looked at it. It read, Zhang Zizai, Yezi come to Tianya Island immediately. What is supposed to come will still come. It is probably the parents who come to the door. Walk. His mother is Fu General Ning Suiyu. She is very powerful and may become Fu King in the future, Yezi said nervously. He. The two of them arrived at Tianya Island and went straight in. Soon they saw a group of middle-aged people standing in front of Tianya, all of them with fierce looks and cold faces. The leader among them is a beautiful woman, wearing a light blue dress. She looks about 30 years old. She has the most attractive appearance. Her figure is also particularly attractive, plump and delicate. Except for her cold face, she is still very charming. Big. This kind of woman is most likely to arouse young people's impulses. Seeing Zhang Zizai, Tianya looked cold and asked, did you do this? That beautiful woman is Ning Suiyu, the Fu general. She is probably about the same age as Sikong Jin. To become a Fu general at this age, she was probably among the peerless geniuses back then. When she saw Zhang Zizai, her eyes were filled with murderous intent, and she said, the son of the ancient god, you have such great abilities and such a sinister heart. You are actually capable of such shameless things. You must give me an explanation today. You look dignified and virtuous, and I thought you were a reasonable person. However, you are not a good person to teach your son like this. Zhang Zizai shook his head and said seriously. You are very brave to talk to me like this. Ning Suiyu laughed coldly. She found it interesting. She turned her head and said, Talisman King, you brought him in, I can only find you. Who can give me back my son with justice? Tianya Talisman King looked at Zhang Zizai and asked, do you have any solution? He was straightforward. Ning Suiyu was murderous, and her powerful soul realm suppressed Zhang Zizai. If Tianya was not here, it would probably pierce Zhang Zizai's soul. Yes, Zhang Zizai took out a talisman, which was an image talisman. As a mother, take a good look at what kind of character your son is, Zhang Zizai said lightly. In this regard, he has learned the true teachings of the 9 immortals. If there is anything, he will remember it with the image talisman first. The video was played. The opening scene was the 5 of them forcing Yezi, then Zhang Zizai appeared, and finally they left Fanshan Island. See, right and wrong should be judged. I just learned Ning Fan's methods. Do you think it's too much? Zhang Zizai smiled at him. Too much, Tianya said with a cold face. Zhang Zizai, no matter what, you are the one who messed up in the end. You made a mistake when you first arrived, and you must be punished. How do you think the king should punish me? Zhang Zizai asked. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 456. As a punishment, except for going to Wanfu Island, you will not be allowed to leave Qingyu Island for a month, and you will be detained for a month to reflect on it, Tianya said seriously. It's not fair. The punishment is so severe, Zhang Zizai said depressedly. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Suiyu, are you satisfied with my punishment? Tianya asked. Ning Suiyu watched the whole process and remained silent from beginning to end. Ning Fan must have been arrogant when he complained, but he didn't expect Zhang Zizai to save the image talisman. With the content of this image talisman, even if the old talisman owner goes to the trouble, Ning Fan himself is still a joke. Satisfied, Ning Suiyu nodded lightly. The other party's evidence was brought out, and Tianya gave her a symbolic punishment. She couldn't say anything at all. Of course, with his son in such miserable condition, this resentment will definitely not disappear. When she left, she took a deep look at Zhang Zizai, obviously saying that this matter was not over yet. Why did you cause trouble when you first arrived? Tianya glared at him. It's my fault, Yezi said quickly. Yes, he did a good job. You should also learn more about the immortal talisman. It just needs to be tougher, Tianya smiled. He looked at Zhang Zizai and said, you can make any trouble, and I can help you block it, but just like this time, you must occupy the moral high ground so that they have nothing to say. Got it? Tomorrow, you will all enter the top 100 and enter the second stage. Are you sure? Yezi nodded. Needless to say, Zhang Zizai's goal is Wu Shangfu. Ning Fan's combat power should be rank 30 at most. The second stage is about to begin. You must find a way to make yourself stronger. If you miss the Wushan talisman, you will never have another chance in your life, Tianya warned. For example, Ye Chen, Ye Dongyang worked hard to cultivate this direct disciple with money and resources. He knew that he had no hope of being a talisman master, so he placed all his hopes on Ye Chen. Your current strength and he is far worse and has very little hope. Zhang Zizai knew that this person was Wu Shangfu's biggest competitor. His status in the life and death Fu sect is just like Yi Tian's status in the Shen sect. He is 23 years old this year. When he was 18, he was already at the second level of the Divine Seal realm. This talent is not much different from Zhang Zizai now. It's now 5 years later. No wonder he could draw so many talismans in 3 breaths of time. Moreover, his soul realm is 1 level higher than yours. He has reached the virtual god realm. Legend has it that he can even draw a few Kun level talismans. Tianya patted Zhang Zizai on the shoulder and said, however, you also need to calm down. After all, the old talisman master's goal is Ye Chen. Although your talent is higher than Ye Chen, after all, you were not trained by the life and death talisman sect from a young age. You will definitely not, it will be your first choice, so all I ask of you is to do your best. Clear. Ye Chen was from a humble background. Another person like Yishan. His rise is similar to that of Yishan and Zhang Zizai, but more bumpy. His growth trajectory has always been accompanied by a title, that is, the world's #1 genius talisman master. It is said that his totem is a talisman. Between heaven and earth, there is only one whose totem is a talisman. 23 years old, the same age as Zhang Junjian, and his mind is much more mature. Although I want to persuade you that you don't need to be so ambitious, I still feel that if you can suppress him, I'm afraid no one in the world can block your way anymore. Tianya patted his shoulder and said. For a person who lives for talismans, it is not easy to defeat him in this aspect. The fun is when you meet your opponent in chess, Zhang Zizai said. He bid farewell to Tianya and returned to Qingyu Island with Yezi. Brother Zhang, to be honest, there is almost no hope of competing with Ye Chen and the others for the Wushan talisman. Is that what you think? Everyone thinks so. It's just this old man Tianya who feeds me sex every day, haha. Zhang Zizai laughed. This guy, after finally catching someone like Zhang Zizai, only wants to realize his wish to revive the immortal talisman. Who cares whether Zhang Zizai can do it or not? However, Zhang Zizai desires the no-life talisman more than he imagined. The next day, Wanfu Island. Crowds of people. But this time, most of them were spectators. There are only 500 real protagonists. After this time, there will only be 100 protagonists left. In 7 days, there will be only 32 protagonists left. The smaller the number of people, the more Zhang Zizai found that there were more people paying attention to him. Especially after the explosive incident between him and Ning Fan spread. Last night, it was a sensation. If there is no living talisman, the talisman will be born, and you will be filled with righteous indignation. Everyone who looked at him today had anger in their eyes. In their eyes, Zhang Zizai was an outsider. An outsider, so arrogant, did not take all of them seriously. So now, there are too many people with fierce eyes, and they all want to suppress Zhang Zizai with their soul power and affect his performance. Ning Fan was also among the crowd. Xuanhuan helped him come here. Although he was embarrassed, most people sympathized with him. Several people helped to get him to sit down. Ning Fan, your humiliation is due to us, and one day you will return it to this outsider. Many people said this to him. Ning Fan lowered his head and said nothing. He held the spirit wood pen so hard that the talisman ink overflowed. Except Yezi, no one sat next to Zhang Zizai. They all looked at this guy indifferently from a distance. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. You really think that there is no one left in our life and death talisman section? You thought he was the ancient son of the divine section when he came here, he could crush everything and do lawless. I heard that several people are going to deal with him. How? Of course, it is a lesson that will be remembered for a lifetime. Otherwise, he will not remember it. This is the life and death talisman sect. It is our territory, not his. Zhang Zizai has a strong imprint of the divine section. No matter where he goes, people will only remember that he was once the ancient son of the divine sect. On the high platform, Talisman General Jing Qing, holding a talisman in his hand, this is a 100 out of 500. Suo Jing Qing narrowed his eyes, looked at Zhang Zizai in the crowd, and said to the beautiful woman beside him, "That's Zhang Zizai, right? I heard that you went to Tianya and were driven out by him." "That's about right," Ning Suo said with her arms folded. "That's too much. We need to teach him a lesson," Jing Qing said. "Tianya Fu Wang is protecting him. Can you teach him a lesson?" Ning Suo said. "We are elders, it's really inconvenient. I'll talk to Xianer later and ask him to think of a way. It's normal for young people to have disputes. He is protected by the ancient gods." "Aren't you afraid?" Ning Suo asked unexpectedly. "Ancient gods, I can't see, touch, or see them. I don't believe in them," Jing Qing said. "Then let's do this." Ning Suo looked at him and said, "I know what you're thinking. We're both widows. When we get old, we need a companion." "I respect you," Jing Qing said. "Xianer, I also want a brother and a mother." "You want to be Fanu's father, let him vent his anger first, otherwise, he will never recover in his life," Ning Suo said. "Leave it to me." Jing Qing turned his head and glanced at her profile, then looked at her towering chest. Fate plays tricks on people. If you had chosen me back then, you wouldn't have to take so many detours, Jingqing said. Oh, who knew he would die so young? Ning Sui shook her head helplessly. She looked at the time and said, you should start. Let Fanner wait for me, Jingqing said and walked out. Countless talismans set their eyes on him. Get ready, start now. He raised the talisman and stuck it on the talisman column. Who will be the first this time? The suspense will be revealed soon. As usual, 2 chapters today. There will be additional chapters at 12 p.m. tonight, which will be updated tomorrow, about 8-10 chapters. Thank you. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 457. Ghost Fire Talisman. This time it was still a moon-level talisman. However, even if it was also a moon-level talisman, the difference would be very large. The power of the original and current Ghost Fire talismans was no longer at the same level. Zhang Zizai was under a lot of pressure because most of his competitors were staring at him. As soon as the Ghost Fire talisman appeared on the talisman column, they started to write. 10 breaths had just passed. Ye Chen, first. Jingqing's voice rang again. Zhang Zizai was only 1 stroke away from success. When he was called out just when he was about to succeed, he suddenly lost interest and the talisman failed. Looking up, everyone looked at a black-robed young man in the distance with envy. Too far away, Zhang Zizai glanced at his background. This person was still drawing talismans with his head down, like a madman. He changed a new talisman paper. Since he couldn't be the first, he was not so anxious. Of course, he succeeded easily the second time. After the success, the Ghost Fire talisman in his hand soared into the sky, turning into an oily green flame burning above his head. The second one has appeared. He is Zhang Zizai. During the tense competition, Jingqing saw another green flame rising. Just as he was about to call out the name, he paused in the middle and his tone changed slightly. Zhang Zizai. 19 breaths, he is so fast. How can he be so fast? In an instant, tens of thousands of people's eyes fell on him. He had slowed down, but he didn't expect to be the second. It seems that he is not bad in the real competition of talismans. Those who looked at Zhang Zizai were shocked, including Ningfan and others. He is fast at drawing talismans, at most as fast as Ye Zhi, nothing, someone said. But he did hide it before. This guy likes to do such meaningless things. He is obviously at the second level, but he always ranks last, he. In fact, I think he was lucky this time. He happened to have learned the Ghost Fire talisman. That should be the case. But it is said that Ye Chen has not learned the Ghost Fire talisman. On the high platform, Tianya and other elders were also shocked by Zhang Zizai's speed. Tianya, it seems that his ability to draw talismans is stronger than his combat power. Ye Dongyang showed approval. Second place, it's really beyond my expectation, but maybe he has learned this talisman before. Let's wait and see in the next round. Next round, it's the day-level talisman, right? It's a miracle to learn the day-level talisman within a few hours. Tianya said, I hope this kid can enter the 32nd place. No matter how strong his talisman drawing skills are, he still has to strive for a good ranking in the second stage. In the end, it still depends on the battle. He is quite similar to Ye Zhi. Ye Zhi has great potential in talismans, but after all, he is a few years younger and his strength is not as good as before. Ye Zhi succeeded after an hour and ranked 15th. The 10,000 Talismans Association mainly depends on the second stage, Feng Shifu Wang said. I hope he can keep this good result in the end, so that he can deserve the title of genius. But if his heart does not belong to our life and death talisman sect, no matter how talented he is, it will be useless. Tianya, you'd better be careful not to raise an ungrateful person, Lai Wenfu Wang said. You don't have to worry about that. Of course I don't worry, but if something goes wrong, I can't just ignore it. It's better to be restrained when you first arrive, otherwise it will make all the fusion hostile, which will be even more boring. Thunder Plague Fu Wang said coldly. 3 days later, 100 people were finally selected. This time, we will rest for 7 days, and prepare for the last round of the first stage after 7 days. You have to enter the 32nd place to enter the second stage. Even Yezi was a little nervous. He didn't expect to win the championship, but if he could successfully enter the 32nd place, he would have more resources for cultivation in the future. This morning, tens of thousands of people gathered on Wanfu Island again, but this time there were only 100 protagonists, so the space in front of the Fu pillar seemed particularly empty, and the people inside could be seen clearly at a glance. There were tens of thousands of people gathered around, and the crowds were all paying attention. After today, we will finally enter the second stage. Today's ranking is very important. It directly determines the order of the second stage of the battle. The earlier you are, the more convenient it is. Ye Chen has taken the first place in all the matches. There is no suspense. Who do you think will be in the top 4? Anyway, Zhang Zizai is not good. He was lucky last time and encountered the talisman he had learned. He has the strength to fight Ning Fan, but I heard that his goal is the Wuxian talisman. Haha, I laughed to death. Someone actually wants to compete with Ye Chen for the Wuxian talisman. In people's sight, 100 people sat neatly. Ning Fan and Xuanhuan were on his left, and Ye Zi was on his right. Ning Fan had recovered a lot, but so far, his face was livid. Every time he saw Zhang Zizai, there was countless hatred in his eyes. Xuanhuan was the same. Brother Fan, work hard today. A young man in a blue robe came from behind. He had a cold temperament, long flowing hair, and a feminine face, a bit like a woman. No problem, Brother Xian. Ning Fan coughed and nodded. The young man raised his head and glanced at Zhang Zizai. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and his eyes crossed for only a moment, and then he walked to the front. His name is Jing Xian. Ye Zi said softly. What's the relationship with Ning Fan? Nothing, but I heard that his father is pursuing Ning Suiyu. Aren't they married and have sons? Zhang Zizai was stunned. How can they play like this? Their lovers have passed away. So that's it? It seems that they have a good relationship. Zhang Zizai has also read the information of Jing Xian. He is one of the hottest competitors under Ye Chen, much stronger than Ning Fan. He is the son of the host, Fu Zhang Jingqing. They are both equivalent to the sons of the Holy Spirit servant. At this time, Jingqing took out the last talisman and said loudly, the last game, this is a day-level talisman. I'll say it for the last time. The ranking this time is very important. If you rank high, you only need one battle to enter the top 4. But if you rank last, you may have to fight 6 or 7 games. Zhang Zizai has already understood the rules of the second stage. Today, his speed of drawing talismans must be in the top 4, so that it is easier. But everyone will sprint today. In fact, many people hide their strength. Then it depends on who hides more. Zhang Zizai saw the man named Ye Chen in front of him. He seemed to be very lonely and never talked to anyone. He was wearing a large black robe and immersed in the world of drawing talismans. It is said that when the last 100 people were selected, he had already drawn 300 ghost fire talismans. He is indeed a crazy person. Today, with the sun level talisman, how fast will he be? Zhang Zizai is ready and waiting. On the high platform, Jingqing took out the sun level talisman and pressed it on the talisman column under the attention of countless people. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 458. When Jingqing pasted the sun level talisman on the talisman column shone brightly, and a totem pattern that was much more complicated than before began to shine on it. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. The tense moment began. The remaining 100 people were immediately in full swing. 100 people, who can rank 32nd and enter the second stage. This suspense will be revealed soon. When this sun-level talisman appeared from the talisman column, Zhang Zizai couldn't help laughing at the first sight. Evil Spirit Talisman. He had drawn thousands of Evil Spirit Talismans, and this was too simple for him. At the first sight, his pen tip had already touched the talisman paper, and he began to write with dragons and snakes, flying and dancing. The entire Wanfu Island was in a tense atmosphere, and people stretched their necks, waiting for that familiar voice to appear. Ye Chen, first place. There will be no suspense about this voice, it is like this every time. Most people are paying attention to Ye Chen's actions, watching him with cold and focused eyes, as if the whole world only has him and the talisman. He was born specifically for talismans. When drawing talismans, the talisman totem between his eyebrows was shining, vaguely reflected on the talisman paper. He's almost there. What a pervert, even the daily level talisman succeeded so quickly. People's faces were full of admiration. Suddenly, somewhere in the back, a talisman light suddenly shot up into the sky, and the black mist condensed and turned into black shadows, with bloodshot eyes, looking around fiercely, and making a harsh whistling sound. This is the effect of the Evil Spirit Talisman being released after it is successfully released. Those fierce black shadows are actually the existence of evil spirits. This means that someone has succeeded. However, that position is clearly not Ye Chen's position. The scream of the Evil Spirit Talisman swept away, and Ye Chen had just finished half of the talisman in his hand. Click. His pen tip stopped, and the talisman in his hand was invalidated. Until this moment, he finally turned around with everyone and looked in the direction behind him. At this moment, the eyes of the entire Wanfu Island were focused on the person under the Evil Spirit Talisman. First place, Zhang Zizai. Jing Qing's unbelievable voice appeared very late, but after all, it was dead silent at this time, so it was easy for everyone to hear it. Me, Zhang Zizai was stunned for a moment. He was a little focused just now, and he spent a total of 30 breaths of time, but he was the first? Isn't that Ye Chen used to finishing in 3 breaths? He thought he would still be second. As a result, at this time, Ye Chen had not succeeded yet. His idea was too exaggerated. After all, the sun-level talisman and the moon-level talisman were not the same concept. He completed the Evil Spirit Talisman in 30 breaths. Even if he had learned the Evil Spirit Talisman, this time was too fast. It was faster than Ye Chen. What does this mean? The low-pitched discussion was like the sound of mosquitoes, and the talisman students who had been eliminated long ago stared at each other. Did he cheat? Someone shouted. Yes, it is very likely that he cheated. Please ask the Talisman Kings to investigate, this is too exaggerated, Ye Chen hasn't even finished it yet. Zhang Zizai's success has a great impact on the people around him. For example, Ningfan and Xuanhuan on his left. The two were still thinking about it, and now they were stunned in place, and the pens in their hands were shaking. More and more people said that he cheated, and Tianya was a little impatient and said, "Shut up, did you draw the Evil Spirit Talisman yourself? We can see clearly, your eyes are not blind." People shut up at this time, but looking at their eyes, they were still unwilling. After all, it always feels like outsiders have stolen the limelight. In their eyes, Zhang Zizai still represents the divine sect. Ningfan's story has spread, and the impact is huge. Moreover, it is obvious that Tianyafu Wang is following him, and Tianyafu Wang is an immortal talisman system. How does it taste? When people were talking about Zhang Zizai, he was free and suddenly turned his head and asked Ningfan. Ningfan's face was livid, and he didn't look at him, but the pen in his hand was shaking. The same was true for Xuanhuan next to him. Time passed gradually, and in about 60 breaths, Ye Chen successfully drew the evil spirit talisman and got the second place. Jingxian, Fan Qinyu, who can be third and who can be fourth? After feeling powerless about Zhang Zizai's first place, everyone began to pay attention to the next ranking. Because they felt that Zhang Zizai's first place was meaningless, and the second stage was a link to test the real combat power, which did not belong to an 18-year-old cultivator. The final competition still had to be between Ye Chen, Jingxian, and Fan Qinyu. Zhang Zizai won the first place, but he was able to get a good position in the second stage to avoid premature confrontation with the top strongmen. On the high platform, Talisman General Jingqing, Ning Suiyu, Fan Dongliu, and others stood together. Jingqing, your son stopped, said the tall Fan Dongliu. His daughter Fan Qinyu is also a favorite in the competition for the Wuxian talisman. Ye Jingqing nodded. After all, everyone could see that Jingqing, who had hope, suddenly stopped at this time. Fan Qinyu, third, Jingqing saw that the third evil spirit talisman had appeared in the field, and directly announced the third place, and then said to Fan Dongliu, Brother Fan, congratulations, your daughter successfully entered the top 3. If Jingxian hadn't stopped, Qinyu would only be fourth, Fan Dongliu said lightly. He squinted his eyes and looked at it. Suddenly, he glanced at Zhang Zizai and smiled. It seems that Jingxian is quite smart. He wants to get 5th place. According to the rules of the second stage, the 5th and the 1st are in the same group. It will be easier to be in the same group with Zhang Zizai. After all, Zhang Zizai's combat power is only slightly stronger than Ning Fan. Jingqing smiled and said, Xianer is dull and has so many thoughts. Although he said so, everyone knew Jingxuan's thoughts. He wanted to fight Zhang Zizai in the second stage, so he was waiting. When the fourth person who completed the evil spirit talisman appeared, he would continue to act. An hour later, the fourth place Fan Sheng completed the evil spirit talisman. He was obviously inferior to Jingxian in all aspects. He was the son of the heavenly talisman guard. A quarter of an hour later, Jingxian really completed the evil spirit talisman and got 5th place. Brother Zhang, Jingxian has really set his sights on you. He deliberately chose 5th instead of the top 3. Ye Zi was still trying to figure it out, but after all, he was only 5th and he still had many chances, so he was not in a hurry. Is this person the 7th level of the Divine Seal realm? Zhang Zi stared at the young man named Jingxian, and the other party also looked back at him with cold eyes. Not only that, he is much stronger than Ning Fan in all aspects, and is one of the few people who can compete with Ye Chen. Ye Zi said. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 459. Zhang Zizai thought about it. The second stage is the ring battle. 32 people will be assigned to 4 rings in turn. There are 8 people in each ring. The 1st, 5th, 9th, 13th, etc. will enter the number 1 ring in turn. The 2nd, 6th, 10th, etc. will enter the number 2 ring in turn. And so on, divide the 32 people into 8 groups. In this way, if I am the 1st, Jingxian, who is the 5th, is indeed in the same group with me. At that time, there will be 8 people in each ring. The 2 people with the lowest ranking will fight first. After the winner is determined, the 3rd from the bottom will go up and the winner will be determined. Then the 4th and 5th from the bottom will go up. The higher the ranking, the more likely they will go on stage last. The lower the ranking, the more likely they will win in the end. It is basically impossible. This is the rule of the second stage. Zhang Zizai will be in the number 1 ring at that time. There are a total of 8 people. The 8 of them will fight in turn. In the end, a winner will fight with Zhang Zizai. The winner will become the master of the ring and enter the semi-finals. In other words, the top 4 talisman drawers this time basically have one foot in the semifinals. Jing Xian, ranked 5th, is Zhang Zizai's strongest opponent. Basically, if Zhang Zizai defeats him, he can enter the semifinals. However, if he is in the 7th level of the Divine Seal realm and has many tricks, he is not sure. Few people are optimistic. Jing Xian is really smart. In his group, Zhang Zizai, who is the first, is not strong. He easily won the first place because he is the champion of the number 1 ring. So in the semifinals, he will fight the champion of the number 4 ring, which is likely to be Fan Shen, the 6th level of the Divine Seal realm. Basically, he can enter the finals smoothly. And Fan Qinyu, who got the 3rd place, must fight Ye Chen first. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Your son is smart, Fan Donglio sighed. He didn't think of it just now, otherwise, if Zhang Zizai got the 1st place, he would also want Fan Qinyu to be the 5th. Unfortunately, the opportunity was missed. Xian'er, it's not that he wants to make it easier to face Fan Sheng in the semi-finals. He mainly wants to avenge Fan'er, Jing Qing said lightly. You guys, Fan Donglio glanced at him and Ning Suiyu, congratulations. It seems that they have already exchanged glances. His eyes fell on Ye Chen, who lowered his head shrouded in a black robe, and it was unknown what he was thinking. Unfortunately, the old talisman master has basically identified Ye Chen. Even if Jing Xian enters the finals, his chances are not great, Fan Donglio said. It's still early, it's just a gap, Jing Qing said. Hee, you have enough confidence in your son, Fan Donglio smiled. By the way, don't you want Qinyu and Ye Chen to be together? Did Ye Chen agree? Jing Qing asked with a smile. Fan Donglio's eyes became cold, and the two of them started to confront each other. Who said that happened? Fan Donglio said. Oh, then I heard it wrong, Jing Qing waved his hand indifferently. About 3 hours later, someone finally couldn't help and succeeded. The reason why he couldn't help it was because the 6th place was just in Ye Chen's group. After Jing Xian started to choose his own group, the others began to learn. The 6th place was only the 5th level of the Divine Seal realm. After the 6th place appeared, evil spirit talismans continued to appear in the future. Ye Zi, 13th place. Zhang Zizai calculated that the 13th place was in the same group as himself. I didn't expect to get any good results in the 2nd stage. 13th place is already my limit. Ye Zi was very satisfied with himself. In the 2nd stage, people only care about the top 4. Very good, it makes the Immortal Talisman system famous. A total of 100 people participated, and he ranked 13th among 30,000 people, which was really good. Ningfan and Xuanhuan next to him didn't expect Ye Zi to be so fast. The two of them were in a very unstable mood, and Zhang Zizai laughed at them from time to time. 3 days passed. 32nd place, Changkong. I declare that the first stage is over. Jing Qing said this in a very bad tone. Because Ningfan failed to complete the drawing of the evil spirit talisman at the last moment, he and Shenhua failed to enter the 2nd round. For the son of the talisman general, this result was somewhat embarrassing, because many people in the 5th level of the Divine Seal realm entered the 32nd place. Even Ye Zi, who was in the 1st level of the Divine Seal realm, entered. Zhang Zizai has been harassing him, otherwise he would not have been able to enter the 2nd stage. Ning Suiyu's eyes were gloomy, and the look she gave Zhang Zizai was already full of resentment. Why is this person so arrogant? My son has no grudges against him, why is he targeting my son? I heard that it wasn't Ningfan who bullied Ye Zi so that he could see it, Fan Donglio asked with a smile. What's the relationship between Ye Zi and him? They are probably both people that Tianyafu Wang values. Jing Qing stood beside Ning Suiyu and whispered, don't worry, I will discuss it with Xian'er later and take advantage of this Xuanfu meeting to teach him a lesson that he will never forget. Brother Jing, it's up to you. Ning Sui's beautiful eyes flashed, and she said, Wei Fan'er will get rid of this breath, and he will agree to us. I understand. Jing Qing smiled and said, it's a small matter for a young boy. He announced that they would rest for half a month, and the second stage of the ring battle would be held on time. Everyone began to leave Xuanfu Island. Zhang Zizai called Ye Ziyi and prepared to go back together. The pressure was huge next, and they had to find a way to sprint. Zhang Zizai. Suddenly someone called him. He turned around and saw a group of young men walking towards him. Jingxian, Ningfan, and Shenhua were among them. Jingxian was the core figure, especially in appearance. He was a dragon among men. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Ningfan stood beside him with a gloomy face. What can I do for you? Zhang Zizai asked. A group of them came forward and suppressed Zhang Zizai with the momentum of their large numbers. In the ring battle, you are my main opponent, so I came to say hello first, Jingxian said with a smile. Have you finished fighting? I will leave after that. Zhang Zizai was too lazy to pay attention to him. He just said some cruel words, which was childish. After the fight, you can leave. Jingxian stretched out his slender fingers, pinched the other palm, raised his eyebrows and looked at Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai turned and left. By the way, you are quite handsome, you can be considered a beautiful man, Jingxian suddenly said. He actually praised himself for being handsome, which was sick. But this girl seems a little ugly. This nose and eyes are so ugly. Is she really your child? If you didn't tell me, I would have thought her father was a frog. The weird voice came from behind. When Zhang Zizai came here, he naturally brought Lingling with him wherever he went. Usually when there were many people, the little girl was sleeping. Wow, someone actually said that she was ugly. Lingling burst into tears. Her face was definitely a beauty. Everyone praised her for her beauty. But the child's heart was still very fragile. It was very aggrieved to be said to her face like this. Zhang Zizai turned around in astonishment and looked at Jingxian, who was contented, and the people laughing beside him. Your eyes are no different from blind. There is no need for them to exist, Zhang Zizai said. No, my eyes don't lie, Jingxian said. Zhang Zizai comforted Lingling for a while. The other party just wanted to irritate him. It was meaningless. However, Jingxian did succeed. Zhang Zizai did want to beat him up. But not now. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 460. Qingyu Island. Regardless of day or night, Zhang Zizai practices on Qingyu Lake. The ground vein has spiritual energy, also known as the dragon vein. The position of the fisheye of Qingyu Island is this gap. Sitting here, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth flows from bottom to top into Zhang Zizai's body. This kind of practice effect is comparable to the top of the Beast God Tower. No wonder so many people are eager for this Qingyu Island. The fifth level of the divine seal, the dragon, the ear is like a cow, it is the cow divine seal. Condensing the divine seal mainly depends on the secret technique of the 9-day divine beasts along. The top level practice method brings a practice speed that ordinary people cannot reach. The origin continent has endless geniuses. I have a disadvantage in age. Don't underestimate the enemy. The next second stage is the real difficulty of the Xuanfu Club. However, Zhang Zizai has no way to break through. Time is indeed urgent, but the path of practice is a cycle of gradual progress. If you are impatient, you will be powerless. He knows this truth better. In addition to following the rules, I'm afraid you need an epiphany. I've heard that someone had an epiphany and got help from the ancient gods, and his cultivation progressed by leaps and bounds. For the final battle, he prepared a lot of evil spirit talismans and heroic spirit talismans. Only by defeating Jing Xian can we have a chance to fight Ye Chen. But even Jing Xian is not sure. Tianya thinks too highly of him. With his current strength, he can only defeat Ningfan at most. Of course, if we make it to the top 4, it's no problem to summon the Immortal Talisman system back. This can also be regarded as completing the goal of becoming famous, which can convince the public. But the Immortal Talisman is out of the question. On Qingyu Island, Zhang Zizai was concentrating on cultivation, while Lingling was bored and played around in the Talisman Sea of Qingyu Island. She could occasionally find a complete talisman. One night, Zhang Zizai was still practicing. Lingling was tired from playing and returned to the baby state. She crawled in the mud and got dirty all over. She rolled under Zhang Zizai's feet and fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Zhang Zizai took a rest. Looking at the little girl sleeping soundly, he felt an endless motivation to practice. Suddenly, he saw the little guy holding a dark yellow talisman paper in his hand. This guy picked up the garbage in the talisman sea again to play with. Zhang Zizai smiled bitterly and pulled out the talisman paper in her hand. She held it very tightly, and when he pulled it out, he woke her up. "Daddy, this is mine, give it back to me." Lingling was dazed and wanted to grab it. The talisman sea was full of failed items thrown away by the disciples of the life and death talisman section. Zhang Zizai said, "Throw it away, don't always go down to pick up garbage to play with." "It's not garbage," Lingling said aggrievedly. Zhang Zizai smiled, he glanced at the talisman in his hand, and his expression suddenly became puzzled. "It doesn't seem to be a failed item." He poured his true energy into it and activated the talisman. He found that the talisman didn't move much, but a change occurred. The totem pattern on it was actually twisting, and finally became the 2 words beast taming. "What's this trick?" Zhang Zizai was a little confused, but didn't care too much. Until the moment when Lingdang was about to take it back, he suddenly felt that the talisman in his hand vibrated. More importantly, the immortal talisman on his chest also vibrated. "Huh. This is strange, how come the 2 talismans seem to be involved?" Zhang Zizai thought it was an illusion. He activated the dark yellow talisman again and found that it did vibrate. More importantly, every time it vibrated, the immortal talisman on his chest responded. What's going on? Could it be that something picked up casually from the sea of talismans is related to the immortal talisman? Zhang Zizai was puzzled. He took the talisman and looked at it carefully. "It can control big monsters," Lingdang suddenly said. Big monster? Zhang Zizai knew that Lingdang was talking about the source beast. Beast taming talisman. He suddenly became dazed, as if struck by lightning, and looked at the dark yellow talisman in front of him in disbelief. It is rumored that in ancient times, the ancient gods bestowed 6 great talismans. Each of the 6 great talismans has the power of God. Lingdang is indeed the daughter of the ancient gods. She is even more familiar with the power of God than Zhang Zizai. Among the 6 great talismans, Zhang Zizai knows the immortal talisman and the lifeless talisman. But he also knows that among the 6 great talismans, there is a talisman called the beast taming talisman. Lingdang said it can control the source beast. It has the words beast taming on it. It has a connection with the immortal talisman. All this shows that Lingdang may have picked up the beast taming talisman of the 6 great talismans in the Sea of Talismans. But how is this possible? These are the 6 great talismans bestowed by the ancient gods. Is it so easy to get? This is too easy. Lingdang, where did you find it? In the Sea of Talismans, Lingdang said. Take me there. He asked Lingdang to lead the way. Lingdang wants to sleep, she said sleepily. Sleep, you pig. He picked her up and threw her directly into the sea, making Lingdang cry in anger, but there was nothing she could do. When her father got excited, he would even beat his own people. She could only have a headache. It was a very ordinary location, surrounded by failures, nothing special. but Lingdang might have sensed the power of the talisman with her ancient god blood, so she picked it up to play with. Zhang Zizai jumped out of the sea. Although I can't be sure if it is the beast-taming talisman, but Lingdang, Dad loves you too much. He kissed his daughter deeply on the face, leaving a big red mark. Daddy, stinky, Lingdang pushed him away with a look of contempt. Haha, it's okay, you definitely don't dislike Daddy. I do. It's no use disliking him, he was still kissed several times. Zhang Zizai looked at the beast-taming talisman excitedly. No way, is this really one of the 6 great talismans? Who put it in the talisman sea? Everything is so coincidental. He couldn't figure it out. Legend has it that the beast-taming talisman can control source beasts for its own use, even the top source beasts. Whether it is really a beast-taming talisman, I can just take it to the evolution realm to try it out. In the evolution realm, source beasts are everywhere. He took the bell and returned to the depths of the secret room, and in a blink of an eye he entered the evolution realm. When Qingyu Island became dead silent again, a group of human-shaped black water suddenly emerged in the sea next to it. That group of black water had a nose and a face, and looked like a real person. Suddenly, a strange smile appeared at the corner of its mouth. With such a smile, it slowly sank into the sea until its body completely merged with the sea water. The Fu Sea was calm, as if nothing had ever come. At the same time, Zhang Zizai had already arrived at the evolution realm. Lingdang, Auntie misses you so much. Zhang Yuning immediately gave up practicing and came out to pamper Lingdang. Auntie, I want to complain, Daddy beats me and bullies me every day, Lingdang said with tears and snot. Zhang Zizai, at that moment, Zhang Yuning turned into a devil, and scared Zhang Zizai.